we had a huge amount of popularity with our first album with Gordon in Canada. It sold almost 10 times platinum now in Canada, and I think it hasn't even gone gold here. So it's a big difference in sales. But also because it was selling so much, and Canada's a pretty small country, we were everywhere. We were on every magazine cover and every TV show and every radio program. So people got the chance to see us a lot, but I think they also kind of burned out on us. You know, I think some of the greatest writers in music are humorous writers, and whether it's Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, or Randy Newman, or Elvis Costello, or Leonard Cohen, or Tom Waits. These are all people with wicked, hilarious senses of humor. And for some reason, I think because there's some... ours is probably more mirthful than some of these writers, and a little less nasty, or a little less nasty on the surface. People refuse to look beyond that. You know, it used to be just these little offerings of boxes, and now it's like Target practice on the Barenaked Ladies, and cheese powder getting in people's hair and in our equipment. And so we're trying to say, please, no more macaroni. We get the joke, but thank you. You have to be conscious of the fact that the comedy aspect doesn't last like a straight song does. And I think to make a funny song that really has impact but still lasts as a real song is the most difficult task we can endure. I have this strange desire or perversion or fetish or something where I want to do Broadway musicals. And no, can I say anything less hip than that? I've always loved straight-up pop stuff like Nick Lowe and Squeeze, and you know, again, that comes from the Beatles as well. Those are some of my greatest influences that way. But then also, I mean, as a singer, there's people I love. Marvin Gaye, I love Taj Mahal. And when Ed and I first started, we used to say it was Ernie and Bert meets Simon and Garfunkel.
There's a small pie in Canada. There's only 27 million people there. And we had a giant helping of Canadian pie in '92 and '93. I think the main difference is that the U.S. is just so much bigger, and we haven't had that explosion of national press down here. Well, it's always a drag when people write off the band, just say, oh, that's a wacky thing or that's a novelty thing. And I think, you know, to a large extent, we're at fault for a lot of that, because a lot of what we do is really mugging in front of the camera and goofing around. And a lot of people perceive only the "if I had $1 million" and the, you know, the "Be My Yoko Ono" side of Barenaked Ladies. And I think we projected that to a large extent. Well, we have a song called "If I Had $1 Million," and it's on our first record, Gordon. And in '91 or something, we were doing a show in Toronto, and we got to this line. It has a line: "If I had $1 million, we wouldn't have to eat Kraft dinner." But we would. We call it Kraft dinner in Canada. It's Kraft macaroni and cheese, or cheese and macaroni down here, something like that. Anyway, at that line in the song, someone lobbed a box of macaroni and cheese up on stage, and we thought it was hilarious and picked it up, and thought it was funny that someone in the audience got involved like that. Then we played the next night, and 6 boxes flew up on stage. And then we played a couple nights later, and 40 boxes flew up on stage, to the point where, middle of '93, at the height of our success, there were 400 boxes flying at the stage at that point in the song. I think Stunt is our most comprehensive record yet, I hope. We're still in that grace period after the record where you always think it's the best thing you've ever done. But I think it's a really nice balance of the lighter side of Barenaked Ladies and the darker, more wry, cutting side of Barenaked Ladies. 1 week is pretty indicative of what we do live all the time. In between playing the songs that everybody knows off the records, we will always just make up songs and improvise music, and most of the time it's freestyle rap stuff, because that's a really fun music to improvise, because the band can just like lay down a groove and you just rhyme over top of it, and it's totally fun. And we've been doing it since we started and just totally having a blast with it, but it's never reared its head on a record. I essentially grew up on country and western and bluegrass music, which is what my parents sang around the house all the time. I grew up with my dad playing guitar and my mom and dad singing in harmony. So, I mean, I started playing guitar so I could play George Jones songs. Whenever people ask me, like, if I'm in a restaurant or, you know, just run into somebody somewhere, and they find out I'm in a band, it's inevitably they say, you know, what kind of music is that? And I always just say it's devil music.